What I do for my clients is I help them to get clients and make money. I separate out those two things because you would think that, well, if you're getting clients, you're then automatically making money, but not necessarily. If your prices aren't right, if you're not priced to a profit, you're not necessarily going to make money. I believe that in a small business, the most important skill to master is client and customer acquisition. And without having that solidly in place, then nothing else works.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey everybody, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street, the podcast bringing you actionable insights for small business owners. And this week you get to meet Bernadette Doyle. Bernadette helps coaches, consultants, therapists, trainers, and healers get more clients. She's been doing this for over 25 years and helps people, in her words, crack the code on attracting new clients. But she's got quite a personal journey too, and we're going to share that with you. After the birth of her first son, she found her own success had become kind of an anchor. Her words, freedom had become a prison, and she was working around the clock. The model was unsustainable, and soon after she switched to an online model, found herself freed from her constraints. And by packaging her expertise into products and programs, connecting with her customers by teleconference, webinar, she doubled her income in her first year as a new mother, all while being able to spend more time with her family. So we're going to tell you all about that and how it plays into hopefully your own ability to change your model and achieve better success. Welcome, Bernadette.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you. And as folks may notice, if they're American listeners, you have a bit of an accent. So you're in Belfast today, right?
I'm in Belfast. My accent isn't from Belfast because I was born in England and grew up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been in Ireland since 2004.
Very nice. Okay. And how's the weather in Belfast today?
Well, most days the answer to that question is it's raining. And today we're not disappointed by that. Yeah, we're being consistent.
Okay, very good. Well, here in the States, it's spring and summer, so most places have, some sunny days for change. We've had a long winter, but it's starting to get warm here, so that's nice for us. Mm-hmm. So tell us what you do for your clients and how you do it.
What I do for my clients is I help them to get clients and make money. Now, I separate out those two things because you would think that, well, if you're getting clients, you're then automatically making money, but not necessarily. If your prices aren't right, if you're not priced to a profit, you're not necessarily going to make money. But after 25 years of doing this, those are the results that people get from working with me. I believe that in a small business, the most important skill to master is client and customer acquisition. That's just critical. And without having that solidly in place, then nothing else works. And so I think it's the most important skill, and I love focusing on it.
Yeah, that's great. And your niche, if I can call it, it's a pretty big niche, but your niche tends to be people who are more like consultants, trainers, who work with clients, but not have a physical product. How do you find that particular niche?
I think it found me. When I started out, I was working as a trainer for corporates, and I was teaching cold calling. And I was basically showing them how to open up opportunities and create sales opportunities. And I started to get a lot of people coming to those trainings, although they were aimed at corporates, people who were self-employed, working as consultants. And there was one particular guy that really sticks in my mind. And he just had this look of sort of fear and desperation in his eye. And he had a family, and he'd moved from corporate. He had his own business. He was working as a consultant, and he just wasn't bringing in enough money from his business. And so he was feeling like a failure, that he'd let his family down, that he hadn't figured this out. And he came to me to learn my cold calling techniques. And my heart just went right out to him. And I was like, I know how to get you from where you are to all the clients you want. And you need to know more than how to do cold calls. You need to know how to position yourself so people see you as an expert, and they're going to come to you. And I know you need to learn how to sell what you're actually offering. And I realized that he wasn't going to get all of that in that one day training. And so it was that conversation prompted me to create my first product, which was called How to Become a Client Magnet. And actually, he was in my mind very much as I created that program, him and people like him.
Now, generating clients these days, in my mind, seems to be largely about, building an online reputation, a great web presence, spending the money on lead gen, investing in keyword strategy. Is that how you see it, or you have a different way of doing this?
I can help people get clients without doing any of those things. And I think, I know that is perceived wisdom, what you've just said. But I actually think for the types of business I help, which are consultants, like someone who's working from home, a lot of people who've been forced into this situation, if you like, because of COVID, that they're now having to set themselves up as a consultant and get paid for their expertise. They haven't got time to go and build a big audience or do keyword strategies or paid ads or any of the other things you mentioned. They need to get their next paying client ASAP. And so what I do is I'll show them how to take what they've already got in place, so their own skill set, their existing network, their existing reputation. How can they leverage that to get them connected with their next paying client? So I actually help people by taking things off their plate rather than giving them more things to do. And the reason that's important is because for many people, there's a lot of fear around selling. And so to a new consultant, then they're quite happy doing the busy work of, let me go and do some keyword research, because you get the dopamine payoff of like, I checked something off my to-do list. But if you carry on doing that work, that is not the work that's necessarily going to lead to paying clients. So I'm known for a bit of tough love, where I really kind of get people focused on those things.
Okay. So can you give us one or two of the keys to how you help people grow their client list, even without all those online strategies I mentioned? What are maybe number one or two?
Yeah. So there's an exercise I give to people when they first start working with me that we call mining for gold. And what I basically say is, like, make a list of people that you're already connected to, people in your network that you think might be in the area of people who, could buy your product at some point down the line. But don't attempt to sell to those people. Reach out to them and set up a conversation. And often it's like, hey, I'm looking, can you help me? I'm thinking about creating something that will help people who have this problem to achieve this result. So fill in the blanks as necessary. And I was wondering if you'd give me some feedback. And so that the goal here is not to sort of set up a sales conversation under the guise of research. That's not what this is. This is genuine research. But what it does is it gets you talking to real people who represents the audience you want to sell to. And from those conversations, we call it mining for gold, because gold comes out of it. And we use the data that comes from those conversations, we use to shape an offer. So it's like, find out in advance what people want to buy and what their objections would be, and then create an offer that addresses that. So that's like step one. And then step two is like, once you've got that offer in place, the next thing you need to do is go and validate it. So you need to get someone to pay you for that offer. Now, we get people to do that first before they build it out. So, for example, a lot of the people I help might be selling an online course, and they think, well, I've got to go and create the online course, but that could be weeks of work. And that's wasted work if you don't know for sure that people are going to pay for it. So our model is you get paid to create what you're going to create. And that might be just going and finding one beta client, and you walk them through the process, and you get there, to see the result. It helps you fine tune what you might need to improve in your process or your delivery. Potentially you get a success story and a client testimonial out of it, and then build from there. So it's very organic.
I like it. You referenced a couple of times when you work with people. So you're working with people as a consultant to them. You're dealing one-on-one with clients, or I guess also you speak at webinars or conferences. So your way of helping people is generally some type of direct consulting to them. Is that right?
Yeah. So in my programs, my clients have access to me, but I don't do one-to-one consulting, because that would be like quite expensive for the client, and it wouldn't really fit with my model. So this is what I found works best for me. I make the distinction between, when I'm helping a client, the difference between information and transformation. So when people come to work with me, there's a certain amount of things that they need to know. And so those building blocks, I can pre-record that. I can give people exercises and checklists. They do that. They do that on their own. But in terms of them really helping them to apply that to their situation or get out of their own way as they're applying it, that's where one-to-one coaching is invaluable. So my calls, I say I do one-to-one coaching because I'm coaching one person at a time. They'll be on a hot seat. And I've just come off a call actually where I coached 3 people over the course of an hour. So each person, it was about 20 minutes each. And the majority of people on that call weren't receiving coaching directly, but they were learning and getting value. And I've experimented with lots of different models, but for me, that's the one that gets the best and fastest results for my clients and also works for me.
Interesting. So I want to ask you now about your personal journey, because I think it plays into how this model evolved, right? So I kind of referenced it at the beginning, but you had a personal journey where you were going down a different path and you suddenly said, I got to change something. Can you take us through that?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, when I started out, my model was getting paid on a day rate. So I worked for companies like Sony, and they'd say, well, we're going to book you for 3 days, come in and train our salespeople, and they'd pay me. So it was very much trading time for money. And even with that model, way before I had kids, I could see the limits to it, because literally my revenue was capped by how many hours I had to sell. And, you know, when demand was higher, if I didn't have more hours to sell, that was it. So I could only get push my prices up so high. And so that was the limit on that model. And so that got me thinking of how can I serve my clients and how can I add value and make a difference to them without physically having to be there in person. And so that led me to create a product which was simply a recording of one of my one-day trainings. And we sold that as a separate product. And so that was what opened my eyes to okay, I can serve clients without always having to show up and be there in person. And not long after that, I was connected with a mentor who told me about people who were selling information over the internet. Now, this is back in 2000. So it's not groundbreaking now, but it was then. And what I loved about the model she described to me was that people could come, pay with a credit card, they could download information instantly. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is the model I want. Because I got immediately that there would be freedom in that. There was no inventory to store. So much of it could be automated. I wasn't going to need to hire a team. At that point in my own business, I had an office and I had staff in my office, and I was having to make about the equivalent of $15,000 a month just to pay everyone before anything happened. So it was like in that old model, there were a lot of expenses to be covered before I could get to profit. And it was the freedom, and it was the location freedom that really appealed to me about moving online. So that's what got me moving in that direction.
But you still do some in person now, or is that completely gone?
Yeah, but I do some in person, but not actually since COVID, not since we went into the first lockdown. And I was already starting to wean off my live events, etc. So all my interaction now is online with my clients through Zoom calls, through Zoom meetings. So I'm still connecting with people.
Sure.
But yeah, I can do it from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's great. And I should mention to everybody, your website is BernadetteDoyle.com, and there they can find your book, which is a free download in return for some, I guess, email address, as well as all sorts of information about your courses and learnings and so forth. So it's a great website, and people should definitely check it out, BernadetteDoyle.com. Bernadette, can anybody who is in this space of a consultant or trainer or healer or therapist or any of these kinds of information businesses, can anybody succeed at client generation? You think by following your methodology, they can all succeed in generating new clients? It's nothing about a personal skill that might hold them back.
I think anybody can learn to do this. And in my experience, what holds people back is more their thoughts about selling. So I see what I do with clients as two things. Is that there's, on the one hand, getting clients is really quite straightforward. You need an offer, you need people to sell to, and you need a method for, converting those people into clients and customers. That's straightforward. What makes it complicated is all the stories that us humans love to bring in our brains. Things that I also had myself. And when I started out, like selling is hard, selling is pushy, don't want to be a pest. What will people think? They might not like it. So a lot of stories, and those, in my experience, are the things that stop people as they move forward. I just worked with a client today, and she's got one, which was she shared on a call that her belief was, in order to make profit, she needed to do things that she didn't want to do. And I offered her that, in my experience, I've made the most profit by focusing on the things that I love to do, and that was a thought that was optional. She doesn't have to carry on believing that thought. So yes, I think anybody can do it. It's just, you also do have to have that willingness to not necessarily believe all the stories that you tell yourself.
Agreed. Most people fear rejection, and most of us think of selling as rejection, right? Because most of the time we're going to get a no. And so that's scary and unappealing for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when I get back with you, we want to talk about some of these areas that people find difficult, like asking for a price, setting a price, and hearing, what happens if the client says, I can't afford it. We'll be right back.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
So we're back with Bernadette Doyle in Belfast. And Bernadette, we were just talking before the break about selling and how many people, fear rejection, those kinds of things. And one of the things, it's always a difficult moment, is when the client says, well, what does it cost? And you tell them a price and they say, I can't afford it. And that, to many people, is like, oh my God, what do I do now? What do you do when people say they can't afford it?
So when people can't afford it, when people say they can't afford it, what you really need to understand is, what are they really saying? Because often when you hear I can't afford it, what a person is actually saying is, I don't value what you're offering me as much as I value keeping that money in my bank account. And so it's really important to explore what the person is actually saying. Now, the best way to do this is if you're not attached to the sale. So if as the salesperson or the consultant, you're coming up against this objection, and you've already made this person or this sale equal next month's mortgage payment, then you're not going to be able to cleanly facilitate them. And what I like to do in this situation is really start to figure out where do they stand? Is this something that they want, but they're actually telling themselves that their circumstances that they can't afford it? Or is it actually they don't really want it, but they don't want to say no? Because, we talked about, the aversion to people saying no. Often, not only do we have an aversion to hearing it, we have an aversion to saying it sometimes as well. So the point at this point is to create a safe enough space to keep the conversation moving and really explore what that means when the person says that, without being attached to the outcome.
Got it. Interesting. I've noticed so far, I don't think I heard you say the word product or service. You've been talking all about client acquisition. Does it matter if my product or service are not good enough? Because if I don't get the client successfully, my first thought is, I don't have a good enough product, or I don't have a good enough service, that the problem is me or the content I have. Do you not see it that way? You see it's more about making sure you have the right tools in place to acquire clients?
For most people, when they're starting out, the skill that they haven't developed is how to present what they're offering. So it's very, and actually this is something that I get into with my clients, because it's very easy for people to say, oh, well, they're not buying, that this audience isn't buying, therefore the price is too high. It's like, no, it's not that the price is too high. You just haven't got as good as you need to get at explaining why, this price is a steal, this price is a bargain. You haven't shown them the cost of their current situation. You haven't helped them see what's currently costing them to stay where they are versus where they could be with this solution. And the interesting thing I notice is that people hide from those conversations because there's such a fear of, oh, but I'm going to be seen as pushy. And to me, it's not about pushing. It's not about every conversation leading to a sale. It's about helping people to make clean decisions and really be aware of what they're saying, because so many of us, our conditioning is we get our circumstances to make decisions for us. So, you say, oh, well, can I afford it? Does the bank balance approve of this sale? But all of us can also think of an example of a time in our life where we wanted something and we didn't have the money, and then we went and found a way to get the money. I could list off tons of examples of that. I see you nodding as well. And so I remind coaches of this. It's like, if you're coming up against this objection, it's not necessarily a true statement about their circumstances. It might be, but what you need to do is get in and really start to explore what's really going on. And so I think the place to improve, you can actually improve the value of what you're offering by getting better at describing what it does and the problems it solves, rather than having to go and improve the content, like replace a video with a different quality video.
Got it. I noticed you in your biography, you talk about Richard Branson was one of the people in your journey who you, I think you were in some mastermind groups, and there's some pictures of you with him. He's a pretty well-known character. How'd you come across him, and why was he interested in you?
At the age of 16, when my peers were sort of putting up pictures of pop stars on their bedroom walls, yours truly was reading biographies of Richard Branson. I was fascinated by him at a young age. And so he was someone that was on my vision board, that kind of like, I'd like to meet Oprah too. I haven't met Oprah yet, but he was right up there. And I then was in a mastermind group that were organizing trips to his island. And it was a $40,000 investment. And I'm like, I've got to be there. And again, it was like, I didn't have the 40,000 sitting around in my sock drawer, so I had to figure out, well, how do I make this happen? But I've been on several trips with him, and he's really amazing. He's very, he's a listener much more than a talker. He's obviously inspiring to be around because of his own story. But what I have loved about spending time on his island is really getting to see up close and personal how he lives life. And he has really set up his life to support him and serve him. So he gets up in the morning and he's got a tennis coach, full-time tennis coach. He plays tennis. He exercises a lot throughout the day, but he has totally set up his environment to serve him. He works really hard too. And I've become friends with his PA. And so, I get an insight into just like all the hours he puts in. But not once have I ever seen him grumpy or kind of like, well, I had to drag my sorry ass out of bed this morning to do this stuff. Never resentful, never grudging, always very, very gracious. So I like learning from him. I've learned just from sort of observing him and being in his presence, as well as like his example and what he has to say.
Very interesting. So he's found a way to make his business work for his life, as opposed to making his life the sort of slave to his business.
Well, if you think about it, he lives on this private island, which has been blown down by a hurricane, but they've rebuilt it. And on his island, he gets to live there 12 months of the year. But if you look how he makes that possible, he and his family only have exclusive use of that island 1 month in August. And the rest of the year, they open up to have guests come and stay. So he does this a lot in his business, where he looks to what he wants, and then he finds a way to offset those costs. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but the very first flight he did, he's famous for his airline now, but the very first flight he did was he needed to get to the Virgin Islands, and he had to charter a plane. So he was in an airport, in Puerto Rico airport, I think it was, and he got aboard. So he chartered the plane and he was selling tickets. And I think that's where the phrase Virgin Airlines came from, because it was the first time that they were doing it. But I think that's fascinating to observe from him, is his thinking. When he wants to do something, he finds a way to achieve it without him having to put in his own money. He finds a creative way. But also the great thing about it is that it adds value for everyone. It's not like he's just like passing off the bill to, someone else. It's like there's an exchange of value. I asked him once about Necker Island because it's so beautiful there, and they've done all sorts of things, like ecological things that they've done in terms of their own water system, etc. now. And I said once, when you first came here, did you ever think that it would be like it is today? And his answer is very telling. He said, we always knew it would be too good to keep to ourselves. So his thing is very much about sharing and that everybody benefits. And he's found a way that he benefits by helping other people benefit. It's a great philosophy to have for making money.
Yeah, that's great. I want to ask you, we only have a few minutes left, about technology. We're Thryv is a technology company. We build a CRM for small businesses. Do you use technology? And what do you think are some of the keys to using technology for the clients you have, like in terms of building their business? Is it important?
Oh, absolutely. Like the very first piece of software that I had in my business was, how do I keep track of the emails and email addresses? Because you need to be able to contact people. And I'm really surprised even now when I go into what might be quite a mature business and they haven't got that in place, like a solid system for tracking, just even keeping a track of all the people that have inquired them. Then when you add in, like, I love anything that you can automate. So if you can add in automation, and things like the prompts to know when to contact the right person at the right time, that's invaluable, because that's what really good selling is. It's about making the right offer to the right person at the right time. So software like yours that can help people do that, like, I think that those are just essential things to go to start with.
Yeah, Thryv is really about what you said, is automating that contact process, and of course maintaining a very up-to-date database. But something that people often tell me they find really useful is having a history of all their conversations with their clients. So many people have trouble staying organized, and within Thryv, all of my conversations with the customer are captured, and so I can, and including my staff, so I can see what was said, when it was said, and it's all in one profile for each client. And then people find that very valuable, because otherwise it's like on sticky notes on a refrigerator door, and you just get confused. So I totally get that. What's next for you? Where is your business going now that hopefully we're sort of seeing the end of COVID? What do you foresee for the rest of 21?
So I'm focused on one main program right now, which is called Get Clients, Make Money. And my vision for that, I'm currently the lead coach in that program, which I love to do, and I'm not going to be giving that up anytime soon. But I want to add more coaches into that program so that we can scale, so we can reach more people in more time zones around the world. So my vision is very much on that, is on filling that program, improving that program, and delivering incredible results for our clients in that program. That's where I'm focused.
That's great. I think just as we close out, maybe you can give me one success story of one of your clients who might be inspiring for people, somebody who you help build them up and grow their business. Anybody in particular come to mind? I know you have some success stories on your website.
I can think of lots, but the one who does come to mind is a lady called Nikki. And the reason she comes to mind, when she started working with me, she was a consultant, and I think she was making about $200,000 a year. So by many people's accounts, she had a successful business, but not by her. In fact, she spent her first day with me, she was in tears a lot of the time because her relationship was at breaking point. She was working all the hours, having to travel a lot away from home. And, the only way, if anything, she was just moving really fast just to stay in the same place. And what we did was re-engineer her business. And she was making a lot of assumptions about what she needed to do to serve her clients. And I helped her move past those and find a new way. And she re-engineered her business. And so she was able to be at home much more. And in her case, what that meant was her personal relationship went from her partner saying, like, if you don't fix this, we're over. I smile because they're now parents, and they've got a beautiful son and daughter, and I take a lot of pride in that. And I mean, obviously they made the babies. I wasn't I wasn't there in the hospital or any other stage of that journey. But it's like, I think this is why I do what I do. It's not about yes, it's get clients, make money, but it's about what that enables you to do. And in her case, it enabled her to stay in a relationship that deep down she did want to be in and start a family. I've had other clients where they've moved countries, or they've been able to, buy their dream home. Or I've got another client right now who's literally moving to Portugal from Denmark. And I think that's what this is about. It's about finding a way to share your gifts with the world and make a difference in the world, and also get rewarded at the same time. And there's lots of ways to receive that reward, but that's the one that comes to mind right now.
Well, that's a great story and a fantastic message. I can't think of a better way to finish this. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Bernadette, today. I know you're you got a busy schedule, but thanks for making time. The book is Get Clients, Make Money. The website is BernadetteDoyle.com, spelled the usual way. And as you've heard, Bernadette is just a font of knowledge about it. Improve your consulting business, your training business, any kind of business where you're sharing information with people. So definitely check her out. Thanks again for joining us today, Bernadette.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend or share it with a colleague and give us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. Until next week, make it a great week.